I'm going to be talking about something really personal today. It's something that I don't talk about at all, that only a very few completely trusted people in my life know about. And certainly something I never thought I would talk about on any public forum. But it's important, and that is my past with addiction and overcoming addiction. And before I start, I just want to make it clear that I'm in no way trying to advise anyone who's going through this on what to do. I'm not a professional, I'm not trying to give any kind of advice in that way, but I am going to share my experience, and everyone's experience is completely different. But what I would like to hopefully convey is that you're not alone if you're struggling with it, and that there's absolutely light at the end of the tunnel. And I also wanted to discuss it because the space that I want to create here is all about openness and showing up as your completely raw, authentic, sometimes messy, hurt self. And it would be an injustice and a contradiction to my channel to not talk about something that is such a massive part of who I am, where I am now, and is such a huge aspect of my healing and my growth. So that's what I'm going to be discussing. It won't be for everybody, but for those of you that get to the end of the video, even if one person can take something away from it, find hope in it, then it has truly all been worth it. So for me, it began when I was a teenager, and like lots of people, my teen years were genuinely the darkest years of my life. I had crippling depression and anxiety, and I'd already had quite a few life experiences at that point, and it was just a very, very dark, lonely time. And I'd injured my back, and the timeline on this is going to be really kind of messy, because at the point that my addiction really hit, everything was just a blur. And there are genuinely moments now that I still can't really properly recall or piece together. But I'd injured my back, and it was quite bad. So I was given morphine to help with the pain. Now at that point, the point that I was given it, I was already on really high doses of antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. I wasn't sleeping. I had a really demanding schedule with school. I was also doing performing arts outside of school, and life at home was just difficult. So I was given morphine, and that kind of carried on for about a week. And very quickly, astonishingly quickly, that drug just took hold in every way. I realised when I took it, and this is not to glamorize it, because I can promise you there is nothing glamorous about it. There is no benefit to it. But initially, in the moment, when I first took it, things felt easier. I convinced myself that things felt easier. They weren't at all. And I had no idea that within a matter of weeks, I would be and become a completely different person. And so, yeah, I'd say within about a week, I had mentally, because I had told myself that this medication, suddenly things don't feel so pressurizing. Suddenly I feel good. I feel great. I'd already put that kind of identity onto it. So when it got to the point where on paper I no longer needed it for my back, I realized that no, I didn't even acknowledge at that point that I was taking it for my back. So very quickly I went back to the doctors, feigned, played on the pain for as long as I could. And you know what makes me so angry now, not that it's their fault because I went there under false pretenses, but it does make me angry how easy it was, truly easy it was, at 16 to go to my GP and say, I need this, and just be prescribed it. So this kind of carried on until eventually, like these things always do, it escalated. My tolerance had increased. And then I got onto oxycodone, which I believe in America is called OxyContin. And that took years of my life. That one drug in particular, as soon as I had that, my addiction spiraled completely out of control so quickly. So quickly. I was still studying, going to school, but I'd had been given opportunities with performing arts. I turned them all down because suddenly my primary focus was solely on acquiring that drug. I was like I had laser vision for it. Physically, I was completely dependent on it to get up, to move, to function. But mentally, again, I had put my entire identity into that drug, and that if I didn't have it, I told myself without it, I wasn't confident, I wasn't capable, I couldn't do it. And the real key was that without it, all of the emotions that I didn't want to feel were there. And with it, they weren't. And I think that's what made it so appealing initially, right at the start, because it was like this sense of all the emotional pain, the emotional trauma kind of just fell to the background for a bit. And I didn't want to feel it anymore. So this carried on for a long time, and it was at a point then that, the GPs eventually realised, okay, yeah, got a problem. So I then became a version of myself that is really hard to sit with. I started to lie, and it was astonishing. Like I'm not the kind of person that lies, and I never was before. But for this one little tablet, I became such a crafted liar, and I became manipulative, very deceiving. I stole medication if and when I could. I was at that point on top of taking the oxycodone, going around sometimes 6 to 7 different pharmacies a day and buying over-the-counter codeine, to the point where I then had like a little factory under my bed because I'd learned how to extract the paracetamol from the codeine tablets, because in my head it was like, well, I don't want to overdose on paracetamol, because that made sense. And it was completely out of hand. I was then completely failing in all my studies. I had passed up some what would have been amazing opportunities. But above all of that, I have two younger siblings who are significantly younger than me, 9 and 13 years younger. And before all of that had happened, I was reliable. I was extremely protective. You know, I was their big sister. I was there for them in every way, any way that they needed. And suddenly I wasn't. And it's not like I just wasn't doing those things. I was a completely different person who was tearing the family apart, causing huge division, lying, stealing, didn't want to interact with them anymore. And they just saw that as I didn't care or didn't love them. But the truth is that I was so ashamed of myself every day. Hated, truly hated myself. And then it's a vicious cycle, because the more you hate yourself, the more you take. The more you take, the more you hate yourself. And you can't get out of that easily. You can, but it's not easy. And then there was one day when it was just, my life was heading in one direction, and it wouldn't have ended well. And so my parents took me to a local clinic. But at that point, I wasn't ready to stop. I didn't want to. And I wasn't ready to admit I had a problem, even though I absolutely knew I did. So we went there, and I just wasn't willing to work with anybody. And I'm not sure how long it was after that initial trip, but my sister, who would have been quite young at the time, she looked at me one day, and I was pale, really thin, looked awful, completely wasting my life. I think I just got caught stealing again, and she turned around completely justifiably. She was furious, and she said, I am never going to be anything like you when I grow up. And that for me was the moment that hit me. It's like, what example have I set? She's right, and I would never ever want her to be anything like me. And at that point, I was exhausted. I was tired, trying to keep up with my increasing tolerance and just watching my entire life fall apart, and watching the people I loved suffer because of it was just too much. So I said, okay, let's go back. So I went back, and there was this one man there, Jerry, incredible man, and he sat me down, and he was really, for me, the first person to sit me down and talk to me like a person, not just a number on a spreadsheet, like a real person. He saw me, he understood me, you know, and he didn't try and make anything sound better than it was. He was just straight with me. And I appreciated that, and I thought, okay, yeah, here's someone who, and I know just from the conversation we had that he fought his own demons, and that's a big thing for me. That's why I've always struggled with counselling, because for me, I have no problem with being given advice, but I find it hard to take advice from people who haven't experienced similar things to me, so don't really fully understand where I'm coming from. And I knew that he did, and that really helped. So then we had a plan. So I was then, they worked out how much I was taking a day, which was hundreds of milligrams of opiates a day. It wasn't, by that point, it wasn't just morphine and oxycodone. It was tramadol. I was also addicted to benzodiazepine, so I was taking zopiclone, codeine, oxycodone, and other forms of morphine. So it was just a cocktail of poison every day. So I was offered methadone, but that didn't, because I had an opiate addiction. Buprenorphine was the best choice for me, because there was no way that I could just stop. If I'd have just stopped, I could have just stopped, but they said it would be way too dangerous, and I would just go back to using again, which I know I would have. So I was put on buprenorphine to substitute the drug use. But before you can start that kind of treatment, you have to get whatever is in your system out of your system for, I think it was 3 days. And those 3 days were horrendous. I've never felt so ill in my life. It was, and I didn't say this to scare anyone, it's a part of the process. But my brother, and I think he must have only been about 4 maybe at the time, he came into my room because I was so ill, and he just gave me this massive hug, and my whole family were incredibly supportive and just there for me, and I know how fortunate I am to have had that, because that's so often not the case for people. I can't imagine what it's like to go through something like that on your own. So I was extremely lucky. But those 3 days, I did 3 days, and oh my God, when I ran, I think, well, I couldn't, I was so ill, but I would have ran back to the clinic. And I was put on a very, very high dose of buprenorphine, which, for now, I'm going to leave this video here, because buprenorphine is kind of its own video, and that kind of leads into the second part of it all. But yeah, I was put on buprenorphine, and I never used morphine again. But yeah, it was very, very difficult. The buprenorphine I was put onto to substitute, I had to go every day to my local pharmacy, and I live in a very small town where everybody knows everybody. Every day, supervised, and the pharmacist has to watch you take it. And that was humiliating, but I did it. And that was where I think I realised that even though the buprenorphine stopped me from taking the drugs, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, all I had done then was mentally supplement the identity I'd given myself, supplement what I told myself morphine was giving me, and put it into buprenorphine. And it still acted as an emotional blocker for me. So I still wasn't really processing anything, but physically I was recovering. So I will go into buprenorphine in a different video, because it's important to do that, and especially when I found out I was pregnant with my son, that was another huge turning point for me. But this month I am now 7 months off of buprenorphine as well. So I can now sit here and say that I am now not on anything. And it's incredible. And it's a point I never, ever, ever thought I would get to. Because even though I haven't used drugs in like 9 years, now I'm off the buprenorphine too. It's been 7, nearly 8 months. And I was at a point where I really did not think at all that it was possible that I could do it. At all. Crippled by fear. I had made it my identity that no, I'm an addict, I'm always going to be an addict. No. I never thought I would be sat here now saying these words, that I am for the first time in about 15 years off of everything. And when I say it feels amazing, when I say I am healing, when I say my quality of life, who I am as a person, the love I experience every day, the way I live my life every day, the health that I'm restoring every day, every single part of it is incredible, and it is possible, and it is doable. And if I can do it, believe me, if I can do it, I mean, I've glossed over so much. It was awful. And if I can get out of that, anybody can. That's my point here. Anyone can. You know, especially the opiate epidemic now, especially, I know how huge that is in America right now. It's the same here. It's horrendous. And so I want to talk about it because I've lived the experience. I've lived both sides of it. So if I can offer anything, even just support, guidance, comfort to one person, then that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to use my experience for. It's not going to be in vain. It's not going to be in vain at all. And I've been able to make amends with my siblings and my family, and I am so fortunate for that. But I'm going to make sure that it wasn't just for nothing, because it wasn't. I can use that experience and that pain and kind of pay that forward and be the kind of person that Jerry was for me to anybody, then I'm going to do it. So I know it's a longer video, but it's important for me to talk about. Yeah. But yeah, I'll be covering kind of buprenorphine and kind of what happened after that in another video. But right now, the most important thing for anyone to take away is that I've done it. And you can too. So thank you. And I'll see you soon. Bye.